What's going on, everybody, and welcome back to the Backstage at Open Highway podcast. I'm your host, John Henry. Hope you're having a great summer. My kids are great, but they're wild as hell. That's how summer goes when you have young kids. But that is neither here nor there. This week I have a very special guest, Mr. Chuck Mead. Chuck Mead is a pioneer of the country Americana roots revival that happened throughout the 90s into the 2000s. Chuck Mead was in a band called BR 549, which is one of the, as I mentioned, pioneering bands of Americana and country. Very worth your time to dig into them. They planted a seed that I really do think grew along with others, but helped to develop the Americana and the country scene that I think we're seeing today. And I guess I should preface that by saying, like, the non-top 40 side of country, because we ain't in the Americana to make money, you know what I'm saying? But he has an amazing history. He was born in Nevada, Missouri, ended up in Lawrence, Kansas before moving to Nashville, and we talk about that a little bit. He was involved with the Sun Records $1 Million Quartet Broadway, as well as Broadway musical, as well as the expansion of Lower Broadway on Nashville, in Nashville. I don't know if you've been to Nashville recently, but it's insanely huge and crazy, and there's a crane everywhere. In the interview with Chuck, he talks a lot about kind of Nashville at a prior time than that. Before that, when an artist could afford a home there and live, it's tougher and tougher now. Nashville's obviously an amazing place still with I still feel like it's the home to obviously top 40 country, but a lot of what we're doing here with Americana roots, rock, all that stuff. But spent some time there, and there was a period of about 3 years where I was down there twice a month writing and meeting with folks, and it was an amazing time. I love being there, but it is a humongous, bustling city, even compared to when I was spending the majority of my time there. We talk about that. He's a living time capsule of all, great things that have happened with Americana in the last 30 to 40 years. So I was thrilled to get a chance to talk with him. And the reason why we're talking to him today, besides the reasons I already listed, is that he will be at the Golden Record on July 17th, which is Wednesday. Tickets are still on sale. It's a really great show. Florian Fox opens. Make sure you get there. Doors at 7, show at 7:30 at the Golden Record on Cherokee. I'll be up there. Come say hey. I really hope you enjoyed this interview as much as I did recording it. He was an extremely nice guy. We talked a little bit after the Zoom had ended, and I wish I had recorded it, because we talked about even more cool things that I think would have gone here. So that shows you. Great job, me, Mr. Podcast Host. But that's not important. What's important is what we have here and now, being in the present. So thanks for joining me, and please enjoy the interview with Chuck Mead. Well, good morning. Thank you for joining us.
It's a pleasure to be here.
You got a really cool background to your...
This is my little shack out back. This is where all the magic happens.
Yeah,
when I was when we were in the lockdown, we used to do every other Saturday. We'd do the little SOB jamboree, little shack out back, and we'd have people come on the front porch and play because we were being social distancing.
Very cool. And, yeah,
it kept us alive, man.
Yeah. I think about that time, or just how crazy it was, and with everything with live shows, as a promoter, it was crazy time. But musicians that, we figured out a way to get through it, like with regard to media and things like that.
Yeah, I mean, it really did help. It's just a shame that some clubs didn't make it
Yeah.
after the pandemic. Some good ones.
Yeah.
It's just a shame, you know. But I don't see any other way to curtail that kind of a pandemic other than
Right.
just keeping people away from one another.
Yeah. No.
Nobody knew.
Yeah, I think that's one of the things that gets lost is like we look back at that period with hindsight, and it's nobody knew. Like it was a weird thing. It was scary at first too.
It was absolutely scary because people were dying,
Yeah.
and nobody really knew, and there was a distinct lack of leadership at some points of that too. But we got it back on the rails, and it's under control. All you got to do is, you know, everybody got vaccinated enough that people live now, even if they got it.
It's great.
It is.
Very grateful for that. I got it as soon as I could possibly get it. Just like
Me too.
Just get everything going. You're a Missouri boy originally.
Well, I was born in Missouri.
Okay.
I consider myself a Kansan now.
A Kansan.
Even though I've been living in Tennessee for over 30 years, I still consider myself a Kansan. I was a border baby. Okay. I was born in Nevada, Missouri, because that's where my mother's from. And I spent a lot of time down there, to be quite honest. I grew up playing in my folks' country band when I was a kid. Since I was 13 up until I was about 20. I played just about every Friday and Saturday night. And we play in there was a great place called Lake Corral. It was in Osceola, Missouri. Man, we had a great time with that place. But mostly we were the antler circuit, you know, the elks, the moose lodges, the eagles. And those were great too, because you got, you know, for me, I got to see grown-ups getting hammered, you know.
Yeah, and it's sort of like the track of some of the early Sun artists too. The Eagles Nests and the Shell and the just these smaller venues around that served as venues back in the day.
You know, those kind of private clubs have kind of gone by the wayside mostly now, which is kind of sad because they were always good gigs, and you know, people seem to have a lot of fun. But it is a club, and you have to join, and you know, and I understand that too. A lot of people aren't joiners.
Right. The thing that I just thought of was I was rereading this Rolling Stones book, and there was a quote from Keith Richards when they were on their first American tour. And he said, we'd be in Oklahoma in some bar and there'd be a band that was light years ahead of us playing wise. And they were just soaking everything in, learning from all of these different, you know, Midwestern interior bands that were just, you know, he said light years ahead of us. And just the skill in some of these early players were unbelievable.
Well, you know, some of those guys have been playing for years. I mean, you know, there's people like that all over the world where they never leave their little region, but they're still great pickers, you know.
Amazing, yeah.
Great musicians, but you know, they didn't want to go pro. I ended up going pro. You know, you come down here to Nashville, that's what you do.
Yeah. Yeah. So, what age were you when you settled into Nashville?
I was like 31 years old when I came to Nashville. I kind of came late too because I fell into you know, my hometown of Lawrence, Kansas. It's a well-known velvet gulag where, you know, you could live there. At one point, you could just mow lawns for a living and have a decent life.
Yeah.
I worked at a music store and a movie theater, but that allowed me to go out and play, and I could take some times off to go on tour because I was in a band called Homestead Grays that played quite a bit around the Midwest, and we made it up mostly to Chicago and played in New York a couple of times, and down in Texas. So but that was like a college roots rock sort of situation. And I just decided I needed to go pro.
Yeah. The
I really wanted to learn how to play country music.
who were some of your early influence, would you say, like North Stars with regard to country musicians?
Oh, well, Hank Williams.
Mm-hmm.
Hank Williams is the North Star because he embodies everything that came before and after. And even, he and it's ironic, though, that some of the earliest, the country legends like Bill Monroe, Jimmy Rogers, and Hank
Mm-hmm.
Williams, they were all taught to play their instruments by black men. And that really still exemplifies how, even though at the time they seemed excluded, people were included, because musicians take influences from everywhere they see it.
Mm-hmm.
If they see a Japanese lute player playing something really cool,
Yeah.
they're gonna, hey, how can I incorporate that into my thing?
Yeah.
And that goes for everybody. It's interesting to me to listen to more modern African music that's influenced by James Brown.
So it's coming the other way. Yeah.
Yeah, it just because it goes full circle. But yeah, I mean, when I was younger, Hank Williams and of course all the stuff that was on the radio when I was a kid too, like Earl Haggard and Willie Nelson and Dolly Parton and Wagner and it was also really influenced by my uncle who played in my family band. He graduated in 59. His music was like Carl Perkins, Elvis, all those rockabilly guys, and so I soaked up a lot of that. I even got to see Elvis in 1976. I was a weird kid back then. Oh yeah, I was the guy listening to Elvis records while everybody got their Foreigner records out.
Yeah, right. I still think you're right. I think that's some of that, the arc of Elvis and the Sun music, the Sun Records singles, just this, these hauntingly beautiful, sparse records that set a bomb off in the music world, just changed.
Well, it seemed like it came from outer space.
Yeah.
Not only just the performances, but the way they sounded. And that has a lot to do with the way Sam Phillips was recording things.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, even those blues guys that he was recording before all the rockabilly guys came in, it sounds like it's made on Mars.
Yeah.
Which goes along with the flying saucers rock and roll thing.
Right. Yeah. And just my personal experience of when Sun music, for me, it was Elvis, the early Elvis stuff. Good Rockin' Tonight. I mean, that's all right. Obviously, and Blue Moon, the first one was amazing. But the Mystery Train, to me, the mysteriousness and the depth on that record, even though it was put out in 55, it's so current to me still. It sounds so fresh.
Man, Mystery Train comes on and the world stops. Seriously, for me anyway. I don't care whatever's going on. I'm listening to that because it's the spookiest, and God, where is that coming from? How do they do this? And it still amazes me, the influence of that. I mean, that was really rock and roll ground zero.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of people will say that New Orleans was that too, and New Orleans had a lot to do with it. I mean, those guys were making what they called rock and roll. They, in their world, that was R&B, but it wasn't like the rockabilly stuff. Chuck Berry arguably really is the king of rock and roll, though, just simply because he wrote all those songs. He purposely wanted to sound like a country singer because he wrote songs that were about something. It wasn't just rock, or look at me. Yeah, it was
coffee-colored Cadillac.
Yeah, exactly. Everything was very descriptive. Everything was very literate because his mom was a teacher and he read. He was a very intelligent guy, Chuck Berry, but he had a lot of soul there in it too. There was a lot of Louis Jordan, and which I'm a big fan of. That jump blues stuff really did turn into rock and roll.
Yeah.
From the other side, from the R&B side. And and of course, once the rockabilly thing caught on, then all the older country guys started doing rockabilly cuts, like Carl Smith had some stuff in it because it was close to Western swing. They all that hillbilly boogie stuff and like the Maddox Brothers and Rose, that predated rockabilly. But I mean, that's about as wild of music as you can listen to is the Maddox Brothers and Rose. I mean, it's insane. And they were the ones that started wearing the colorful costumes first, too.
Okay.
They drive down in Cadillacs, man. They had their mom ran the whole thing.
When I'm listening, to Americana these days, I feel like there's a lot of the playing field is a little bit more wide open, maybe in years past with non-radio Americana, I'd say. But I wanted to see if there are any songwriters or artists right now that you're particularly fond of or into.
Oh man, I'm really into Charlie Crockett. I think he's great. I think he's expanding what country music can really be. And as well as Sierra Farrell. What a talent. Just out of the park. Unbelievable. I've been listening to a lot of that stuff and, my usual oldies.
Right.
I've even been listening to a little bit of the modern country music. I decided that, I've talked so much about how it sucks. And it's like, well, do I really know if it sucks? And so for like 2 or 3 solid days, I turned on the XM Sirius Modern Country channel and just listened to see what it was up with. And I came away with the men are all like this watered down hip hop or hick hop or whatever you want to call it. But the women have like killer songs.
Yeah.
Like there's like Lainey Wilson's great.
Yeah. She's cool.
She's like the big star there is now.
Mm-hmm.
And, Miranda Lambert has always been great. Yeah. I thought,
I agree. I mean, I see it the same way. She seems real. And her songs are real and her vocals real, and she's a songwriter or artist at heart.
Yeah, it's so that's my takeaway is the dudes just talk about girls in Daisy Duke shorts and drinking beer getting hammered drinking whiskey. Although there's some that write, Drake Milligan, who I worked with on the Sun Records. He played Elvis when he was just 17, and he's developed into a really great country star. I mean, like he sings, and his influencers are like George Strait, and then, he likes Merle Haggard and Waylon and all the old stuff that's good too. But, since he's so much younger than me in particular, I can only say that about me. I mean, of course, influences are going to be slightly different. I mean, Alan Jackson is looms large in everybody. The 90s country is oldies now. That's what BR549. We're 90s country.
Yeah, it's funny that you mentioned that.
It's a shame we can't play together anymore because we capitalize on the 90s country nostalgia.
Yeah, and it's like good songs and a good vocal. That's like the nostalgia of it. It's like, why don't we just make this not nostalgia and just status quo? Like,
that's always been my question. If you can make crap sell, then why don't you just make good stuff sell?
And it's a weird form of masculinity, I feel like, that's I mean, in the world in general, but just this drinking girls, like I have a truck, like the girls in the Daisy Dukes or they're in the river. And it's a strange macho vibe. And I don't relate to it when I listen to it. I don't get where it's coming from. But when I hear Hank Williams, Cold, Cold Heart, that makes sense to me, You there?
Are you back? Okay,
yeah,
we're back.
Sorry. We'll just pretend like that never happened because this was going so well.
Okay.
What's your impression of just the expansion and the metropolis of Nashville now? Just the growth and the cost and
Well, everything changes. Time marches on, but it was just Nashville grew at such an incredibly accelerated rate that a lot of people feel left behind. And it's definitely one of those things where if you work some sort of gig as a bartender or a waitress or something like that, which is mostly what the jobs are around here because it's tourism, people can't even afford to live in the town. And there's all these Airbnbs that have cropped up everywhere where that's just what it is. And they tear down houses and put two tall, skinny houses up. And it's just a land grab. And it's unfortunate because a lot of the soul has been ripped out of this town. A lot of stuff that, like, really cool stuff. And I don't know, maybe in 30 years, the people that are moving here now will say the same thing,
Right.
But it won't be as drastic of a change as it was between, say, 2006 and 2015.
Yeah.
It's just like mind-boggling how much it changed.
I've heard some artists from the Austin area talk about a similar thing happening there. Like the artists and the songwriters are having to move further and further outside of the city center, where just because they can't afford to live within.
Well, yeah, these people jack up the rents and local stuff can't survive. And it just rips out the soul of the town. I mean, I couldn't, if I moved to town today, there's no way I could afford to live in where I'm living. I mean, we bought our house in the 90s, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we've watched it all just add in value, and I guess that's great for my property value. But it chases a lot of people out. First, I started chasing out like grandmas that had been living in their house for 45 years. All of a sudden, they can't. The house is paid off, but they can't afford the taxes. And that strikes me as very unfair, but the world ain't fair.
Yeah, here we are.
I mean, if I had anything to say about it, and I really don't, I would say stuff like that would be like, if you've been living in your house for 20 years, your property taxes don't go up ever.
Yeah. Seems fair to me.
Yeah, because then people, that made their lives at that place. Now, when they sell, then, of course, the new people, they have to come up and pay the regular taxes. This is the platform I'm running on.
Okay.
I'm not running. I'd be insane to run.
Yeah, well, I think that, your voice, I think, matters. And I think a lot of people share that opinion. I think that, not everybody wants to have millions of dollars. They just want to live with some dignity and respect,
Well, yeah. Everybody just wants a nice life.
Right.
That's really all anybody wants. And some people begrudge other people for having a nice life. Like it's that zero sum mentality where, like, if somebody gets something, then somehow that's taking it away from me, even if it doesn't have anything to do with me.
Yeah. Right.
People have that mentality, and it's disturbing, because I grew up naive. I grew up in Kansas, man.
Yeah.
Where in Lawrence, everything's groovy. Everybody gets along in Lawrence.
I went to Mizzou in Columbia, Missouri. So
yes, of course.
Yeah, I'm a St. Louis boy. I get it. I've always really liked Lawrence. Every time we've been there to play or been there to pass them through, it's a nice place. I mean, Kansas City too.
Yeah. Oh, Kansas City's great. Kansas City is one of those towns where you drive in and they've updated stuff, but it still looks like Kansas City.
Mm-hmm.
Like there's still that Western Auto sign, and you can still go down to Arthur Bryant's or Gates or any one of these great places, and it's all still there, but they've updated that what is it, the Sprint Center? I don't know if it's called the Sprint Center.
Yeah. But I can't keep.
They made things better downtown too. They redid some stuff, revitalized it. Now they're talking. I don't want to. I don't know. I don't live around there, but it just seems to me Kansas City has always been a cool rockin' town because the mayor back in the 1920s decided if you want to have a real urban, like a city, it's got to swing. And that's where all the Kansas City jazz came from, down at 12th Street and Vine. And they have a museum down there, a jazz museum and a Negro League baseball team museum, too.
The Monarchs? Was it Kansas City Monarchs?
Kansas City Monarchs, that's right.
Yeah. Yeah, rich baseball town, too. When I picture driving in to Kansas City, I always picture the baseball stadium like 8 miles or 9 miles outside of the city. You're coming in, you're getting
it's
close.
Great. Yeah. And the football stadium too. It's like now they move all that stuff. It just seems ridiculous because it's so like iconic.
Yeah.
And it's just money, it's ridiculous. Yeah, I was at Game 7 in the '85 World Series.
Oof. Yeah. Well, good.
I know it was hard for you Cardinal people. I know. It was Game 6. I get it.
I think most people have moved on from it. I hope. I mean, I was 2, I think. Yeah, 85. Yeah. So
great. Thanks for making me feel old.
Well, I'm feeling that way myself a little bit these days too. But it just years go by, they just click. We're thrilled to have you in St. Louis here on Wednesday. Are you guys out?
I'm looking forward to it. But I've never played this place.
Yeah.
What's it like?
It's a cool venue, man. It's on Cherokee Street, which is just a really eclectic neighborhood, and the venue's just a renovated older building, nice club with crown molding, and it's cool. It's in a cool spot. It's very diverse, and see a little bit of everything. If you like Mexican food, there's a lot of really good places on that street where you could go in, and most of the people there are Mexican, and you're the white guy sitting at the bar, so you know it's good. So yeah, I think you'll have a good time.
I've always had a great time in St. Louis. I mean, I was playing there. I've been playing there since the '80s, and when down in the U City part, down on Delmar, and we always had a great time in St. Louis. It was not that far to drive from Lawrence to St. Louis. And it was a good connector to go to Chicago too.
Totally, yeah, a really good route. I mean, yeah, you got 4 hours from KC, and then 5.5 from Chicago, or to Chicago from St. Louis. A good weekend warrior route too, if you're just doing the Thursday, Friday, Saturday.
Well, we're trying a Wednesday, and we're doing it early, so everybody come out, please.
St. Louis, come out. Well, they will be seeing a great show. Just the historical background that you had, I mean, that of all this stuff, I think is really important. I think knowing the history of country music and rockabilly and early rock and roll is something that's getting lost nowadays, the further we get away from it.
Yeah, but you'd be surprised. There's a lot of kids. We're playing this thing that's been happening for a few years tomorrow night called the Tuesday Honky Tonk, and it's at this American Legion Hall that is great. And it's just a bunch of young people dancing to cool country music.
Yeah.
And it's a real scene. And so there is a thirst for something authentic, I think. And, and to me, that my rock and roll is late 70s, early 80s rock and roll, when I was in high school, meaning like, the Ramones and Clash and Nick Lowe. And, there was a great time period there where there was a lot of cool local bands and everything. And, and so now, I wrote this song years ago called Little Ramon Has Gone Hillbilly Nuts. And it was a song about a punk rock gal who went all country. And now I think, my attitude is that now I've kind of infused my punk rock back into my hillbilly music.
Yeah, that's funny. Yeah.
I have a new song out called Lonely Boy, and you can stream it on all the streaming services to hear it. And it's a song I wrote with Marty Stewart years ago. But it's like I call it the Who on hay bales.
Okay, nice. Yeah, yeah.
It's a little more aggressive than your average hillbilly song, but it's still, it's me, so it's country.
It's interesting, the arc from rockabilly and early rock and roll and punk. Like it seems like as punkers like age, they become more aware and more soaking in. They soak up the country vibes, like the good songwriter vibe country.
Well, yeah, everybody wants to write a song. Everybody wants to write a song that's memorable, that lasts, to make your mark, so to speak. And that's always what I've been chasing. I just want to try to explain why I'm sad or happy or pissed off or whatever. And I think that's the main ingredient. You can play a song any way you want, but the song is the song, and that's what makes the difference.
I think that's a perfect way to put a bow on this interview.
Well, I appreciate the time, man.
I appreciate you joining me. Like,
are you coming down to the gig?
Of course.
Right on, man.
I'll come say hello.
Please do.
I really appreciate you taking the time, just going through all of this, and you're living through history. You're like a totem of Americana and country through theirs, and you're making great music, and just really appreciate your fresh take on all this stuff.
I appreciate your appreciation.
Well, thank you, sir.
All right, man.
I'll see you on Wednesday.
Right on.
Have a good rest of your day.
You too.
Thanks. That was great, man. Thank you so much.
Hey, my pleasure. So I guess I'll put you on the list. I'll let you.
I'm the promoter.
Oh, you're the promoter. I had no idea.
Yeah. So
that makes it even better.
Yeah, I'm an artist and a promoter. Just got into the promoting side just so I didn't have to travel as much. And I've done like a lot of stuff with Marty Stewart. Done 3 or 4 of his shows. Kenny Vaughn, like some of the folks I think you've run around with. Chris Scruggs, I've met a handful of times.
Chris was playing in BR when he was 19.
Yeah, I didn't realize that when I met him the last time, but when I was kind of doing a little bit more research on it earlier, I saw that, I drove Marty Stewart from the airport to the gig, not knowing that I had to do it. Sorry.
Are you there?
Yeah, I'm here. Yeah, Marty Stewart. I mean, just what a gentleman. And I remember, like, I was promoting one of his shows, and he walked off stage and came up to me and just goes, shook my hand, said, "Thank you for, thanks for having us." And I'm just like, "You're a legend. Thank you." It was one of the happier moments of my, like the promoter side of my career or whatever. Just.
Well, man, he knows where it's at. He gets it on a bunch of different levels, and he was one of the first supporters of BR. We saw him. He'd come down to Lower Broadway and see. I have a picture somewhere of the very second that he and I met. I was on stage at Tootsie's Orchid Lounge. Mm-hmm. Back when the front of Tootsie's was just one guy in the window. And he came, it was in the afternoon. It was, a shit gig in the afternoon. And he comes in with the TNN film crew, and the place is virtually empty. I mean, there's a few people there. And I'm like, "What do you want to hear, Marty?" And he said, "Play a little Dixie Fried," kind of a test, an obscure Carl Perkins one. And I launched into it because I know Dixie Fried. And the next thing I know, he was up on stage, and he was doing the fingering part, and I was doing the strumming part, and we were doing the song together, and someone took a picture of it. And I have it somewhere. I've been trying to find it for a little while because that was the second that we met, man. And he's an incredibly gracious and incredible person. He don't let moss grow underneath him. I promise you that.
Yeah, that he did a Fault Line, a Tom Petty song recently. I heard it on Outlaw, and he just took a Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers thing and just made it his own. It was really, really great.
They did a whole country petty country record where a bunch of country stars did. But he recorded, and the one for that I think he did was I gotta know.
I need to know.
Yeah, I need to know. But he also did Running Down a Dream.
Mm-hmm.
I heard him do that live. Well, Mike Campbell produced that Way Out West record.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I remember that. Was that the kind of the cover was a little trippy looking?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
That was very cool. I mean, just getting to hang out with him just for a little bit was just, I just kept my mouth shut and just listened, and watched. But he was just like their sound checks was awesome,
Yeah. Kenny Vaughn's the best guitar player in town for my money. But if you talk to Kenny, he's like, it's kind of harsh. And I've heard him say this. It's kind of harsh being the third best guitar player in this band.
Yeah.
Because Scruggs is just off the charts. And so is Marty Stewart.
Yeah.
But Marty Stewart's soul really comes out when he picks up that mandolin. That mandolin is so much a part of him. It's crazy.
Yeah. There's some good Otis Gibbs. Are you familiar with him?
Otis Gibbs is a very good friend of mine, and he co-wrote one of the songs off of the record I made in 2019.
Okay. Yeah, he had some Kenny Vaughn interviews on his YouTube channel that are, everything he puts out is like, he's so good at that.
Yeah, he's great. I love it.
It's just like his natural vibe is just so cool. And when he gets he gets everybody. Like there's a Charlie Starr one I just saw the other day. And just, like you have just played with so many legends and been around. So it was really a pleasure to get to meet him. And
yeah, I like to watch his thing. Actually, I've done a couple of those for him. And he's kind of back in town. He moved back up to Indiana for a while, but I think they're back down here now.
So I'll have to share, you did do some Otis Gibb YouTube stuff?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. I will share that because his stuff is just so good all the time.
It is good. It's really good.
And I'm kind of trying to model when I interview artists like that, sort of after that. Where it's just let the artist talk. They want to hear, people want to hear from you, not me. Well,
that's what I try to do on my radio show too.
Well,
I have a radio show on WSM.
Oh, cool.
It comes on once a month. Yeah.
Cool.
Where I talk to people that I know and we just hang out, and whatever comes up naturally in the conversation dictates what records we play.
Sounds awesome.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
I wonder if I could live stream that. I bet I could.
Live stream it.
Or just listen to the...
It's streamed. Yeah, it's streamed on Route 650, which is the WSM streaming service. They're a little Americana one. The third Friday and Saturday of every month. And then on Sunday, it's broadcast on WSM AM 650, the Air Castle of the South.
Yeah. That's really cool. This has been a lot of fun. I hope it was not too painful for you.
Yeah, it's great. Yeah. I want to do anything to make this a good, successful show.
Well, I appreciate your willingness to do that. I think that I don't look at promoter artists like as an adversarial thing. I look at it as we're partners on a business for one night at least, and maybe a career. So,
well, yeah, you got it. I think that's the way you have to think about it. All the good ones are like that.
Yeah. Well, really appreciate your willingness to do this, and I will release this tomorrow morning, and I'll send you a link if you want to share any of these as clips from your stuff.
Absolutely, I'd love to share it. Okay, I'll share the whole damn thing.
Nice. Well, thank you again, man. It was really nice speaking with you.
Thank you, and I'll see you Wednesday.
Yeah, looks forward to seeing you.
All right, man.
Take care. Thanks.
I hope you enjoyed that interview with Chuck as much as I did. As I mentioned, he's going to be at the Golden Record on Wednesday, July 17th, which is tomorrow. If you're listening to this the day this podcast comes out, which I'm sure you are. Speaking of that, we have Gabe Lee
coming. July 27th, also to the Golden Record. Up and coming, you need to check him out. July 27th, Gabe Lee is one that I think you would really dig. And we just announced this one this morning, and it goes on sale Friday. But Mr. Chris Knight will be at the Golden Record on December 21st. That goes on sale Friday. I already said that, but I'm just reminding you. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you to the St. Louis Arts for sponsoring this podcast. We really appreciate all that they do. And come say hello at the show. Share this with your friends. Be good to people. Stay cool, literally and metaphorically. It's been a good time. I hope you have a good rest of your week. This is John Henry for the Backstage at Open Highway Podcast.